What was your experience with Cal Poly Humboldt, your education, and what role did it play in your career? Let's start with John.
Yeah, thanks for having me here today. My experience at Humboldt was quite good. I came in the late 70s. I tell people, many people have heard this story already, but my connection to the institution is very personal. I met my wife the first day I got here, 2 hours after I got to campus as an 18-year-old student.
Whoa.
So did I.
Did you really?
Yeah,
wow.
I did, yeah.
I thought it was special. I guess that's not.
Yeah,
That is cool.
If you want to find love, Cal Poly Humboldt.
Yeah.
No, I met her like the fourth day where I was working at the depot.
That's
and
great.
I sat down next to her, and then we just like hit it off after that. But anyways, continue on.
Well, I got you beat. It was first day, 2 hours after.
That's awesome,
Right?
yeah.
And, 49 years later, we're still together.
That's awesome.
Anyway, it was quite a while after I graduated before I reconnected with the institution, and done a number of things in life since then, but all comes back to my experience at Humboldt, meeting Kathy, and getting really a good education here that stood the test of time, and I had a chance to interface with lots of people from much more prestigious places, but I did well, and I want to give back now, and I'm in a position to do that, and that's how Dan and I hooked up and really engaged in that process.
Okay, so you two met at Cal Poly Humboldt. What was Humboldt State? No?
No, we didn't meet here. Dan was actually chairing the Boldly Rising campaign, which I'm sure he'll talk about. And a couple of people said we should get together. He invited me over to his house. We had a bottle of wine or two, and out of that, Lost Coast Ventures was born. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It was back through Cal Poly Humboldt at the time. We're just becoming a Cal Poly Humboldt. In fact, I was still Humboldt State when we
it wasn't
first.
Cal Poly.
Yeah, we were part of that process that we met. But yeah, back there in the back of the house there, and a couple bottles of wine, and out comes Lost Coast Ventures.
What year was that?
That was
21, I think.
2021.
no, yes,
It was conceived of in 21. It wasn't
was.
actually incorporated until
Yeah.
22.
yeah,
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Nice.
yes.
Awesome. Okay, so you also went to Humboldt State University.
I did.
And you grew up out here.
I am, born, raised, bred, grew up in the mountains of southern Humboldt and Bridgeville, out Highway 36 there until 8th grade, and then moved into the big city of Fortuna so I could play sports. And so attended Fortuna High, attended College of Redwoods. I didn't take the straight path, so I'm going to preempt my buddy over here. While we're the same age, we didn't graduate at the same time. But, I said local, coached sports at Fortuna for some years, but was going to go back and finish my degrees while working in a lumber mill to be a school teacher, and took computer science. Also was going to get a degree in business administration because I decided that this computer thing I had aptitude for, and attended Humboldt State at the time. 2 degrees out of there in business and computer science, but ultimately worked with a professor of mine, Professor Blaisdell, Jim Blaisdell, did research work for NASA Ames, led the research grant, and we started a software company.
Oh, which one was
coming
that?
out of there. It was called Metasystems, located right up the street from here on the corner of 14th and H. You'll see this house there, and we had one little piece of that house at the time.
Oh, wow.
With a few dollars between us all, and started a software company.
Is it still running today?
No, it isn't. It for about 5.5 years, and ultimately split up, took it down into the Silicon Valley, and started my career in technology.
Wow.
But I think it's fair to say, Dan, that even at its high point here in town, you had almost 50 employees. Is that true?
That was at our peak. We grew that from the couple of us, mostly hiring Humboldt State students, some that had worked with us on projects, and grew the company from there.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So you, so after your education, you worked in businesses like Metasystems, Crossworlds, which is now IBM, and Trados. Throughout that time, what was the most valuable piece of knowledge that you learned and were able to take into your career later in life?
You're talking about the earlier part of my career, and it Metasystems. I mean, that was from the scratch, growing, scaling a company, going in and pitching, making sure you could look even bigger than you really were, but delivering. So, it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing, but I learned a ton through that process. I developed relationships, and ultimately went internal to a company called SGI at the time, a high-flying company. Happened to be presenting at this meeting, and the founder of Crossworlds saw me present and wanted me to come over and join that company. And I learned a ton there. We raised money back in the 90s when the internet thing was going.
Yeah.
The .com bubble.
The .com bubble. And we scaled it up from, I joined with less than 50 employees to taking it public, became head of engineering, then head of product management. Oh, wow. So learned a ton through that, traveling around the world, pitching our products, meeting with companies. So each of these episodes, and I'll always tie the things that I learned, the thing that really worked well for me is developing relationships and mentors within each of those. And I could point to each of those steps in the process in each of those companies where that was invaluable, and taking the best that I could learn from each of those folks. And my career's always taken me down the path of leading and managing significant organizations. At Hulu, I had well over 1,000 employees underneath me, and what I learned at Humboldt, what I learned from that side of the equation, as well as from other mentors about putting the goals and people and interaction first and out in front, was just invaluable.
That's awesome. Oh wait, let's talk.
Yeah. So I think that's a really great early career for you, and coming out of school and being part of that tech bubble is really I'm sure it's an honor for you to be part of that scene in the Silicon Valley area. So you worked in product management and development in those businesses, and then you eventually transitioned to TiVo and Hulu, correct?
What's that?
You eventually transitioned into TiVo and Hulu, correct?
Yeah. Again, I highlighted this relationships. I left Crossworld at the time, and one of the venture capitalists pulled me into a company that ultimately became Trados. We merged with a European company. So I saw that through, again, through some relationships that I had. We sold that company to a public company in the UK, and this friend that I had made way back at SGI had invented this newfangled thing called a DVR, which became TiVo. And so because of that relationship, they needed someone to come in and lead technology for them as they were growing that company. And that's how I came back, joined them, leading the technology group, and ultimately becoming the chief operating officer for the company.
Awesome. And when did you part ways with Hulu, and what did that look like?
Well, so from TiVo, at the time, I think the first time I retired, I'm trying to, get track back. I thought I was going to, an opportunity came up for me and I was going to take at least a year and a half off. But this incredible opportunity came up where I got to interview and talk with the CEO. Long story short, 1 month later, I found myself sitting in Hulu and being the chief technology officer for them. Wow. That was back in 2018. Wow. To answer your question, my departure from there, and listen, I had an incredible experience at Hulu. We we delivered the first over-the-top product and became over-the-top video or television live service. We became the largest at the time live service, and we grew it from 17 million subscribers to 40 million subscribers. Disney took complete ownership for the company when they purchased Fox back in, if you remember, back at that time. And so they became a major ownership for them. And so stayed with them for just about a year, and then they decided to combine all of the technology groups. And there's something in business, I'm sure John knows, a change of control that happens, and that triggered a change of control for me. And so I had the opportunity and to make an exit at that time. And the decision was certainly one of finance, is a financial decision, but it was also Hulu, even though 5,000 employees at the time, we were small compared to a 250 or 300,000 person organization that owned multiple companies. So that was a big trigger, and so that's when I decided to make my change next company.
Wow.
Awesome. Yeah, I think out of with all the people that we're interviewing or that we're podcasting for this, everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different career, and one similar theme I'm seeing with each person's career is success. And I think that your story really encapsulates that. And I think we're very lucky to have you here on the podcast and be able to capture this story because it's very inspirational for other students that are graduating from Cal Poly Humboldt that aren't really sure what direction their career is going in, but they see opportunities through your two stories. So I think we covered your story very well. I love it, and thank you for sharing. I want to move on to John here, and let's start with your earlier career with TCI and the SBX Corporation and communication technology. So you started with TCI, correct?
Yeah, and there's a story behind that too. I actually grew up with TCI. My father founded TCI back in 1968 in my parents' home as a technology company.
I was researching before this, and I was like, this isn't the right
Same
John?
name.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay, that's why there's some, that
And
makes
my
a lot
son
of
has
sense.
the same name, so it's all very confusing.
That makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever felt like your business or event deserves more attention? That's where AAA Productions comes in. We don't just make videos, we tell stories. From small businesses to community events, we also do real estate, aerial videography, and so much more. Let us help you stand out with cinematic content that connects with your audience. So, if you're ready to take your brand to the next level, contact me today using the links in the description, and let's make something amazing together. Thank you, and back to the show.
And it was at the time an antenna manufacturing company. And the thing that distinguished it, and I'm talking about large shortwave broadcast antennas that were used to broadcast propaganda around the world and such for Voice of America and other entities. Anyway, the thing that they changed the landscape doing was using software. This is in the 60s to model antenna responses and design them in a software package instead of getting in the field and cutting up metal and seeing if it worked, right? And that had broader applications, skipping forward into the 70s and 80s and into cellular antennas and the like. And they were involved in that kind of process. And my father built a nice public company. And I had been doing something completely different after I got married and graduated from Humboldt. I went to grad school and then in Colorado and started a family and worked in higher education for about 6 years. And it wasn't fulfilling to me. I wasn't enjoying it. And tech was starting to get going in the Bay Area. And I wanted to move back to the Bay Area. So I took a job with my father's company, TCI, in finance, in the finance department. And my first job was to control what they call indirect expenses. And at the time, they were doing a lot of government work, and so they had to have somebody focused on cost control. And I got involved in that and did well, learned a lot about the business in a way that I hadn't in high school or college, which, by the way, you should know, I put myself through college by working there during the summer, working in the production area. So I learned basically how everything was happening in the production area of the business. But when I went to college, I never thought about going back. I never thought I would go work. I wanted to do something completely different. One thing led to another. It was late 80s, the end of the Reagan defense boom was upon us, and funding was short. And so at the time, we had 3 businesses in the Bay Area, all doing different things, some common technology between them. But we had to downsize. We went from 500 employees to 142 in 1 year, and we're profitable in the process of doing that. But it was because contracts were cut and hard times were upon us. And it taught me the importance of being nimble and optimizing businesses for cost profiles and the like. And then we began to focus on diversifying into commercial spaces and growing the business again. Eventually, my father retired in 1998, and I was appointed by the board of a public company to succeed him. In the interim, I had served as Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer at different times. And when my father retired, it was in a distressed situation. The business wasn't doing well, and there were really some strong needs for some change and some new products and such. And with a younger team, we got focused on things that were not so important to a founder, but more important to shareholders. And when I started, the stock was at $2.50 a share. When I finished 3 years later, it was at $12.50 a share. My father at the time was the largest shareholder, so he was the biggest beneficiary of that ramp in share price. And I ended up selling the business, going through a sale process, selling it to SPX Corp, which bought the business in 2001 at the height of the dot-com boom in March of 2001. And I thought that was the end of my career at TCI and or SPX. Typically, when you go through a sales process like what Dan mentioned, past management doesn't stay on and they go on to the next thing. And I had a couple opportunities to do that, but I elected to stay. And I did leave at one point, and I left for a year. And the reason I left was that the management at the time was doing things that I did not think were ethical. And I didn't see myself being able to stay there. So I left. That management team was replaced, and they had some contract issues come up the next year. They asked me to come in and help them, and I ended up staying from 2005 to 2021. I ended up collecting a bunch of businesses as time went on, and at one point I had 8 different businesses, global in nature, reporting into me, doing a variety of different things, not all the same kind of technologies. But the processes that I learned at the larger company at SPX were quite different than what I was used to doing in a small business, but directly applicable. And when I sold the business to SPX, I thought I knew everything I needed to know about business, and that couldn't be farther from the truth. I learned so much there and had a great experience there. I might have even still been there now, but in 2020, I ran into a health issue and decided to step away. And it was a good decision for me. I don't have any regrets, and we left on great terms. I still consult with them periodically and respect the heck out of what they're doing.
That's awesome. So clearly you guys both have a lot of similarities. You guys are both really good in tech, and you guys are leaders. Are there any like oppositions between you guys that work perfectly together, which like led you guys to start Lost Coast Ventures, like kind of like Han Solo and Chewbacca, or peanut butter and jelly, you know? Like, what are your guys' differences that mesh well together along with your similarities?
Yeah,
Am I Chewbacca or am I in this scenario?
I don't know, which one's the better look? Let me just take a shot at that. I think we're both similar and different. Dan, the thing that's so nice about this relationship up here is Dan is a local. I mean, everybody in Humboldt County, almost everybody, knows Dan or has heard his story, and he's had an impact up here that's quite significant. He's been giving back longer than I have to the local community. I'm trying to catch up, but he keeps putting distance between the two of us. I grew up in the Bay Area and came up here for 4 years, albeit formative years in my life, right? Really important years. And it's true that we were in technology. He was in software. My businesses were largely hardware in nature, and some big differences there. I find that in our discussions and the way that we approach opportunities and problems, we can get to agreement on an approach quite quickly. I mean, very, very quickly. Sometimes we come at it from different perspectives. And we can also challenge one another with our respective positions on an issue. And the other one often listens and says, yeah, you're right. Or, we can find an intermediate position really easily. I've got a great relationship with Dan and value his friendship and partnership a lot.
And just to add on to that, we bring something different to the table, and I feel that, I come more from the product technology side. John has incredible business acumen and experience, and we were both in tech, but different sectors. And so, that, yin yang stuff is really, really helpful. Something that we really just align and share is core values, and and how we think about doing the right thing and right people, and this guy is higher integrity than anyone I've worked with or met, and and that was really important to me as well, and particularly as we do and take on the endeavors that we're doing out here, the purpose, the reasons, all of those things are like perfectly aligned. So it's been an incredible partnership.
That's awesome. So you guys came together, yin and yang, as you said, and started Lost Coast Ventures. And you were talking about earlier taking a company public and having to showcase your product to investors, right? Now you're on the other side of that. It's okay.
Don't worry.
So, yeah, you had, now that you're on the other side of that, and you guys are both on the other side of that. So what was like your first like significant capital investment, and what lesson from that still shapes how you invest today?
Well, I'll talk about it in a couple of different ways. First of all, in both of our endeavors, we've bought, sold, merged multiple companies. So we have, one of the things that we have is this, even discipline, if you will, of evaluating opportunities, how they fit, the ability to assess, the ability to do due diligence, all of those things before we came. And then, as we look at with, Lost Coast Ventures, even on a personal level, we do investments and make those decisions, so I've done that, and I'm, been working with different startup companies. So there's a set of tools, if you will, that we each have. And we keep learning from each other in different perspectives as we go through these assessments and evaluate opportunities. And I'll let John give his thoughts on it. We're early on with Lost Coast Ventures, and so one of the things that was clear, and I think clearer to me than it was you at the beginning, but was that we have to cultivate first and foremost an ecosystem and and even the mindset of entrepreneurship up here. And so we're really starting to see now opportunities that even today and last week that we've been looking at and evaluating and applying those sets of criteria.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dan. I think Dan has been persistent with the notion of being patient here, right? And I've been a little less patient and wanted to see more timely results earlier on, which in hindsight wasn't right. Yeah. It wasn't right for a number of different reasons. But I agree with Dan. We've been working at this in a number of different ways. We're not just trying to, start companies. We're trying to change, not make Humboldt different either. We want it to remain in many respects the same, but we want it to enjoy a better economic future. and we would like to see better quality jobs up here. We have as an objective 10 years out, we're 3 years in, so 7 years from now, we want to be able to look back and say we can point to 250 good paying jobs that we were responsible for creating in Humboldt County. And we're going to do that through growing, funding, and supporting different ventures. A lot of what we've done over the last 3 years, though, has been less about funding those ventures and more about cultivating them and building the mindset that people can do this. And had enormously fulfilling experiences working with students through an internship program that we sponsor personally. And by doing that, we fund the internship. The interns spend lots of time with us. We engage in community projects in businesses to make the businesses better. And both the business is better off for it, we feel great about it, and generally the students have had a great experience doing it too. That's been quite satisfying. But as we transition into this next phase about Lost Coast Ventures and its support for Startup Humboldt, the competition, we're expecting really good things next spring when we see we've got a handful of ventures that really could make a difference up here now, and they're kind of in the back seat, and they're going to come to the forefront here soon, and we'll get a lot of support for them, I think.
So when you're looking at new opportunities, through the competition and even through LCV over the last couple years, what is your checklist? What are you looking for in these business owners and in these ventures? And what are you not looking for, or what discourages you and makes you walk away?
Yeah. We have a set of criteria that we are looking for, and I think you're pointing to that. First and foremost, you're investing in people, and the founder, the makeup of them, understanding and knowing the vertical or discipline or what it is. Personal integrity, all the things that go into having a high quality founder or founders or that initial core group is really, really important. We want to invest in, we all here have different roles and plays to elevate the area and community. We're looking and focusing on the opportunities or the ventures that have the ability to scale, that they can demonstrate, create ultimately those jobs that have, aside from doing, the local restaurant or pop-up stand, that have the ability to create jobs, have a market, maybe across the county, but certainly throughout the state and maybe even throughout the country or beyond, have that ability to scale. And then, there's the other things like financial opportunities for it, the commitment to stay local and focus local. And listen, there's constraints and you get to a certain scale. It doesn't mean that you can't scale beyond that, but there's that local commitment as well. Is there anything else on?
Yeah, obviously it has to be financially viable, right? Mm-hmm. It's got to meet some financial metrics, which are different for different opportunities too. But to Dan's point, I think we both agree that the quality of the team and the founder in particular are very important to us, and the integrity issue. Doing it the right way. There's a lot of opportunity around in the world to do things the wrong way and think that it's a shortcut. I think both of our experiences have shown us through the work that we've seen others do that that's not the case. You need to do the work and do it the right way.
Yeah. And I will say an interesting, we haven't really touched on Lost Coast Ventures. John and I and others, but certainly John and I as founders, are donating our time and even any resources. The beneficiaries for everything that we do is to, if we take a small piece in a company, is to ultimately reinvest that into the next opportunity, but we get nothing out of it. Ultimately, it's either College of the Redwoods or Cal Poly Humboldt that is the beneficiary of everything that we do.
So when you say that, like, you don't, you spend more time, like the benefit, what was I trying to say? Sorry. Basically what I'm trying to ask you guys is, like, what's the toughest loss that you guys had to take because of like an investment that didn't go too well or something like that? Like,
Yeah, I mean, today we're too early on. So for locally, if that's your question, we haven't really suffered that loss. We've worked through and put a lot of time into companies. Haven't made the decision yet to, well, we've invested the time and effort to do a financial investment into the company. I can point out dozens of mistakes through my career, through my even personal investments, placing bets that didn't play it off, that didn't play out, where, okay, wish it would have went a different way.
Yeah.
And listen, whenever you're investing in ventures, it is not without risk. It is always, that's part of it.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to make, good decisions where the chances and opportunities are all there.
yeah. If you guys don't mind sharing, either personally or from a past venture, what was the worst or toughest loss that you guys taken on an investment?
I've been involved in a number of acquisitions and such over time as a business leader at SPX, and I had a good track record in terms of businesses that we acquired. We didn't always, SPX didn't always acquire successful businesses early in my career.
Yeah.
And I can point to the biggest problem being the quality of the people, the management team that we acquired, and the inability for the acquiring entity to deal with that. And just think about if you take that out of a corporate environment, now all of a sudden you're doing private investing. Right?
Yeah.
And Dan and I are both operating guys. We operated businesses inside companies, but we're at an age where we're not going to do that anymore, right? We're providing advice and capital and perspective. But so if an acquisition goes wrong because the individuals who are in charge of the business aren't as good as you thought they were, there's almost no way to recover from that, right? And that's why we place that very high on our list for looking for good quality individuals.
And for me, actually, the worst was as a merger, but we were being acquired. So we were the acquired when TiVo was acquired. And the number one problem, the big issue was the culture fit. Two completely different cultures, perspectives, leadership teams. It
All
often
people
it's
for us.
all people things, and it's making the wrong people decisions or alignment that often get in the way.
If you have the right people, you can fix almost anything. If you have the wrong people, you don't have a chance.
So, it really just comes down, like, how do you guys, say you want to do a merger with this company, how do you make that decision? Is it like their books that you mainly look at, or
It's a diverse process, a good process is anyway. Depends on the selling entity and what they're willing to share with you, how much data they give you, whether it's a competitive process or maybe you're just looking to merge between you and one other company. But the same issues that we've talked about already are most important. You've got to think ahead after the merger. What does the combined company look like?
yeah,
And what's the management structure? Who's going to be in the seats that are most important? How's the culture? How are the employees likely to respond? Who's going to be displaced by a merger? Or what cost-cutting things are contemplated, and what are the consequences of losing those people? Again, for me, largely people thing.
It often is. And listen, there's different reasons why, particularly acquisitions, that you acquire companies. It can be to broaden your product. It's a product issue or product. You can be buying access to customers, so they have a robust customer. It can be, they're kicking off a lot of profits, so it's a financial EBITDA decision. It can be, and I've acquired companies just for the talent, just purely because they have deep expertise, usually in my world in the software for engineering expertise. And so it depends on your reason for the acquisition and then doing the hard work to make sure that it's going to play itself out, as John was just talking about, to deliver on those. But at the end of the day, 99% of the time, failures come from not thinking it all the way through, or and then it's a people issue.
Do you guys look into like the culture beforehand and like they look good on the outside, and then once you guys merge, that's when the crack starts to form?
You never know everything that you probably would like to know when you acquire a company, but you do your very best to understand that situation before you go into it. If there are red flags around it, you've got to be careful. But oftentimes you can find red flags, but really compelling financial reasons to do it. And you look at it and say, well, if these red flags come to pass, what's my remediation plan? How am I going to solve for those positions and still reap the rewards that we get financially by executing?
Wow, that's really cool.
So we've covered your story, your journey. We've covered your successes. We've talked a little bit about failures, and I think I want to make this transition to Startup Humble. You talked about how at this point you're looking to have less involvement in a business itself, and you want to offer other businesses capital. You want to offer them your experience and your wisdom, and you ultimately want to incubate these businesses for success, which has led you to this beautiful building. And it's more than just a building. There's a bigger picture. What inspired you to launch Startup Humboldt?
I just want to start with this. It was one of our board members, Chris Gaines, who back in 2022, when we first told him of our interest in founding Lost Coast Ventures, he said, well, we'll find a facility and all of that. And I said, I don't want a facility. I want no brick and mortar. I just want to find businesses and fund them up here. And this gets to my impatience that we talked about earlier on. And I think Dan went along with it somewhat begrudgingly, but he said, yeah, let's try that. Right? And that didn't work so well for us. Chris Gaines, again, pops up later on the landscape. And this would have been in late 2023 when the prior occupant of this building was making plans to downsize and space, and he knew somebody there. And he suggested that we meet. So we had a meeting, and it came into the facility, and it looked very different than it does today.
Was this room here when you guys walked?
This room was here, but so was a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. It's very different.
Yeah, the whole atrium area was filled with cubicles. It was painted kind of a yellow.
Plants everywhere.
Very Humboldt-esque, which was fine.
Yeah.
But it had been that way for 25 years and never repainted, and it was tired. Right? The whole facility was. And the current tenant was not going to be extending their lease, but would be here for another year or two. Anyway, it was decided that through a consortium of like-minded people. In fact, we decided before we jumped into this seriously, we decided let's go down to Cal Poly SLO, San Luis Obispo, take a look at their hothouse. They've been doing something similar for 10 years, and what a transformational visit that was. And it helped us better understand how to structure it so that there were resources in the building who could help and respond. Dan and I live outside the area. We're up here all the time. We're up here every month, but we're not here every day. And so it was important to us to partner with Small Business Development Center, both the local one and the regional one. They had offices in Eureka at the time. They actually have 4 entities up here on the North Coast, all in 4 different locations back then. We got together with Will Franklin and Kristen Johnson and began to imagine what this space might look like. Dragged in Casey Flynn from Sponsored Programs, who is notionally their boss. They report into her. And she looked at us and says, oh my God, we've been looking to do this for 6 years. We kind of looked at each other, really? Okay, well, let's do it, right? So we made some assumptions, put together a plan, and clearly couldn't have been done without the support of the Small Business Development Center and relocating their operations into this facility. But now, arguably, you have some of the biggest movers and shakers in terms of economic development and support here in one facility between Small Business Development Center, CR, and Humboldt also have offices here, and then Lost Coast Ventures as well.
And just to add, the one thing that we understood early on was that it takes an ecosystem. The ecosystem around it. If you look at what's happening in Silicon Valley and why all the different, whether it's venture capital, the universities, or different pieces of technologies and playing off each other. So we understood that, and we viewed Lost Coast Ventures as playing a part in an ecosystem. What took some maturing or time or thinking about it is what John just explained, how this all came together, and really having a center place that turned into Startup Humboldt that really makes a difference.
And in reflection, we signed a lease last year in April, and then began to occupy the building in November, December timeframe. And not all marriages are made in heaven, and relationships are hard, but it is a great partnership with the entities. And we don't always agree on everything, but we find a way to get there, and quite positive on every front. Couldn't be happier with that.
Yeah, I think that's what makes like an entity like this work, is people coming together, sharing their ideas, and finding something that will help all parties involved. And that's how you guys kind of started and wanted to do the competition, right? So that competition is the winner can get a piece of $200,000 in milestone-based funding, right? Which is
It's not prize money. It's
milestone based. Yeah.
funding.
So that's when they hit their first step or target, right? And then you guys will be like, okay, here's a portion of that of your earnings, and then when they get to stage 5 or whatever, they get all of it, right? That's how it's going to work.
Yeah, and the challenge, people want to know more about that all the time, right? And the challenge here is we don't want to nail that question down too tightly right now, because A, we don't know who it is that's competing. B, we don't know what they are going to need exactly. Yeah. Our thought is that we will bring them into this facility for a period of 120 days, and they will be here along with a number of others, including us, and we'll work through those challenges that they've got, and they'll know at the time they win what those milestones are and what we expect.
Calling all entrepreneurs in Humboldt County. This video is brought to you by Startup Humboldt. Startup Humboldt is powered by the NorCal SBDC, Cal Poly Humboldt, College of the Redwoods, and Lost Coast Ventures, and we're building the future right here on the North Coast. Here you'll find an intersection between education, economic development, and community. Every entrepreneur can turn ambition into lasting impact, so whether you've got a new idea, want to launch a podcast, or need space to bring your vision to life, Startup Humboldt is the place. Visit us at 876 7th Street in Arcata. Startup Humboldt, where ideas become action. Let's get back at it.
Okay, so if someone won $100,000 and there was 5 stages, they would get $20,000 per.
Not necessarily. It could. Some may be harder than others. Some may require more capital than others.
Yeah.
So you see the complexity that would exist in each business. Through the process that we'll go through leading up to the winner in the competition, we'll come to understand and know the teams quite well.
Yeah.
And what the offering is and what their biggest challenges are. So we'll be in a position at the final award ceremony or shortly thereafter to articulate what the milestones will be.
Yeah, the purpose of this is we want to set them up for success, and not for success in the next 30 days. Set them up to have a successful going enterprise. And so that can be different for different kinds of ventures. And so we want to have that flexibility that we can do and be good stewards and set them up for that success.
What do you think makes this competition different from the other competitions that Awesome Biz Comp has done in the past, and other competitions sort of like this, but around the state? What makes Startup Humboldt's different than everyone else's?
There's 200,000 reasons, right? It's a big prize.
Yeah.
Right. And we are getting a lot of attention in part because of the size of the prize pool. And I think that's undeniable. But I think the ecosystem is also at a different point
Yeah.
than it was previously. And there's a lot of people in the community that have interest in, and by the way, we should also describe there's a micro venture track and then a larger venture track.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
The
what I heard.
micro venture track, we've sort of winnowed off just $10,000 of prize money.
Yeah.
And we expect there'll be a number of competitors in that track, which we encourage. And so you don't have to have a solution that scales. We want to support entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah.
Here. But again, to Dan's point, we want to find the entities that have the best potential to scale and invest in them. And that's what this competition is largely about.
Yeah, and again, the difference is, I think, not just the funds, but the process, both post or pre and post. And so we're thinking it all the way through to really set, these ventures up for success.
Yeah, that's actually a really important point. In terms of past competitions, there had been almost no engagement with winners of past competitions after the competition was over. There was a celebration, and that was it. And you go back to economic fuel, which is often talked about, and ran, for 8 or 10 years here, back from 2005 to 2015 or thereabouts. And a lot of people remember it and have fond memories of it. But, and I'm not saying that this is modeled exactly after that. We had conversations with Rob Barkley about that early on, and he looked at us and says, you guys are going to be successful because you're going to persist after you give people money. And we will. We'll be in touch with them and do our very best to help them be successful.
That's awesome. A big reason why we started this podcast is because we were both business majors at Cal Poly Humboldt, but also because we are both very passionate about the economic scene here in Humboldt County, considering we are young people in this county looking for opportunity. So that brings me to our next topic that I want to transition into is the Humboldt economy and future. And I think you two are very good people to question about this, and we really want to capture your opinions. So to start it off, Humboldt County is known for redwoods, lumber, cannabis, and these things are slowly dying, and Humboldt County is being pushed to find a new opportunity to bring money into the county. What's the next industry that you see that other people aren't paying attention to?
Well, one thing I will say is in each of those cases, you've talked about a specific industry that the county leaned on and that was critical for them. And one of the things that we found and I believe in is economic diversity is incredibly important. So it's important for us, and love what's going on with the bay and potentially the offshore wind, with other types of industries, with aquaculture, and we need that. And that's one of the things that we're trying to drive for. People are going, are you leaning into one specific industry? Mm-hmm. And it needs to make sense for the area. It needs to make sense for, the culture and who we are, the industries, and a good fit from that standpoint. I think it's really important to have multiple kinds of industries to go after.
So you're really honed in on the diversity of industries that are going to bring money into this economy.
Yeah, my comment, I think it's really important to have that economic diversity. And I just want to be careful about saying, and it is this industry that's going to be our savior.
Yeah.
That is when things become a problem. Yes, you want to lean into that, but you want to have the 4 or 5 other things that can allow it. And because what over time is we know there can be changes in, with our government and different moves when they lean into this or investments here. And so resilient local economies that are diverse, they will be more resilient and be able to weather that and create opportunities for its young people as they grow. And that also feeds off each other. So my point is I think it's really important.
Yeah, two other points there too. You just look at what's happened here in the last 5 years, right? the enthusiasm and support that was shown towards offshore wind, right? And look what a political change does to that. The same is true with Nordic aqua farms locally. That seems to be on the back burner also. So you've got to have diversity, like Dan talked about, and pick those bets and make progress on them. You know, I think underlying this whole need, though, are some facts and figures. I went back and looked at what Humboldt looked like in 1976 when I first showed up as a freshman. We had about 20% more students on campus than we have today. So it was 20% bigger than it was today. Humboldt County has grown in those years about 25% bigger than it was back then. But the entire country is about 50% bigger, and the state of California is 100% bigger than it was. What's wrong with this equation, right? Yeah. We're not keeping up. And I'm not trying to, again, change Humboldt, but just to stay in place as to what it was, we've got to do a better job of creating jobs.
Do you guys think that Humboldt has the potential to be at the forefront of the next economic boom, or be the forefront of the next economic boom?
I don't see that, right? I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, we could find something that's quite novel and very unique, and it could scale beyond my dreams. I hope that's the case, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have that expectation. I'm trying to find, and I'm a realist too, that not every industry that somebody starts would be embraced up here by the community. And again, we're not trying to disrupt things and turn it completely upside down. We need to find businesses that can live, survive, and thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, Humboldt doesn't have the scale to be at the forefront, you know, of any kind of economic boom. But I think it could be, it can be really successful and play well into it. And, you know, some things, you know, I believe are real, like climate change. And it can be a key player. And there's so many different industries that can play into that. And it can be in the forefront of solving some very difficult problems out there through research, through the university, through startups, those kinds of activities. The closeness to both green and blue technology as an example. So I think it can have, you know, a meaningful and be really good for the people of this area while preserving all the things that why this is a special place.
So as along with you guys, I'm also from Silicon Valley. I grew up in San Jose, and I moved up here for school. And kind of like you, John, I was up here for 4 years in school, and I'm still here because I fell in love with the area. I've met so many great people, and I guess my goals for my career kind of resides here. What's one advantage Humboldt has that Silicon Valley doesn't, and one disadvantage it needs to overcome?
Here's a funny story, just a snippet. I think this fact and figure sort of captures the difference altogether. There's a large chance that if you lived in a place up here in Humboldt County, the same place, for 23 years, 5 miles away from some of your neighbors, that you would come in contact with those people, right? Dan and I lived for 23 years in the same town, 5 miles apart, and we never met. And we worked in tech, right? That is the essence of some of the difference. You have a sense of community up here that doesn't exist in the Bay Area. I mean, there's small pockets of communities and such. And that's powerful and quite attractive for people, and something that I miss about Humboldt County a lot. But something that needs to be preserved and savored along the way.
Great example, you know. And so I can walk down. I've been in Los Gatos for 25 years now or whatever. I can walk down the street of Fortuna and run into 20 people. In fact, I did that at the Apple Harvest Festival on Saturday. Well, the problem was I had my aunt and uncle with me, so they know everybody in town, so it was really rough. You know, where I might run into someone that I walk the streets of Los Gatos every day, and it's a small community in the broader Silicon Valley. Just to lean into your point,
Yeah.
it's really special. It really is, and people up here have it. They know it and have an appreciation for it. Obviously, all the beauty around it, but we both now feel such a sense of community when we spend our time up here, and love and appreciate it, and motivates us more to do what we're doing.
Yeah, Humboldt County is definitely community driven, and I've been here for just over 3 years, and I have that same thing where I go down the street and I see 20 people that I know, and people in Humboldt County really value one-on-one connection. As opposed to where I'm from, Ventura County, just north of LA, where it can be described as a bit pretentious. Don't kill me, Ventura County, I'm sorry. And so, yeah, people, you'll see somebody, at the grocery store and just like, they'll just not talk to you because maybe there's, a gap between how much you make a year or what car you drive. And they're in these cities and some of the suburbs surrounding them, there is a bit of a pretentious attitude that develops between different classes of wealth. And I think that Humboldt County does a really good job of not doing that. And people really value the community and the individual and building those connections. And so I really like that you guys highlighted that. And that's something I've noticed during my last 3 years in Humboldt County.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry. No. Oh, okay. I agree with that because I know a lot of people from the neighborhood that I grew up in San Jose, and I can go to all the same places that we used to go as kids, like same malls, same restaurants, shopping centers, etc. Never see them, or if I do, they don't acknowledge me. But here, like all of you guys are saying, you walk around and you instantly meet 20 people and it's great because they all want to talk to you and see how you're doing. Whereas in a big city or a big area like Silicon Valley or LA, it's hard to do that. Like a lot of people don't want to do that because, like you said, there could be reasons like financial reasons or like what kind of car you drive,
Sure. Well, you asked a two-part question, and so just to address the second part of your question, what's a disadvantage of being up here? And it's one of the things that we're living there trying to address, but it's the access to resources.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And so certainly in the world of entrepreneurship and ventures, there's financial resources, but there's all the major universities. We're fortunate to have Cal Poly Humboldt here. But even legal and financial advice and all these sets of resources. And, we've went to some startup venues and stuff, and the energy that's going and the cross-pollination that happens there's incredibly powerful. So it's one of the things that we want to bring some of that up here that can really help.
Appropriately focused energy.
Appropriately focused. I like that.
Yeah. Silicon Valley and LA and all the big cities around the country, they all have just a plethora of resources. You can walk down the street and there's 3 ads for, a payday loan or something like that, or legal services. And like up here, it's like there's only like a couple of ads for, say, like lawn care services or law or anything like that. So it's definitely the abundance issue out here is worse than down in Silicon Valley. Yeah. If you guys were to fast forward to 2035, what does Humboldt's economy look like if local entrepreneurs play their cards right?
Well, first of all, it's a diverse economy. If you didn't get that message in my other comments, that playing out, we want to see a vibrant startup community. I think they're going to find as more resources come about, the ability to scale up here, the access to talent, which is really important. And we're starting to see that. The Cal Poly designation with the expansion into hands-on learning and expanding programs, I think is really helpful. I just went through College of Redwood's master plan and understand what President Flamer and the team over there are doing to develop talent and resources. So I think they're going to, entrepreneurs are going to find it an ability to be more successful over there.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a lot to add to that. I agree very much with the diversity issue. That's going to protect us from the cyclicality that exists in many businesses, right? They're not always in phase, and if you have different industries, maybe this will be a more robust economy on the longer term.
Yeah, and I've just been really pleasantly surprised when I've come up here and engaged. Certainly, we've been working with SBDC and their engagement and ability to help the tribes. Have really leaned in, and we've worked with and are partnering with several of those. Certainly, really closely with Blue Lake Rancheria, but some of the others as well. And it's I grew up here, and to see that, I don't think happened, really 15 or 20 plus years ago, and the collaboration and teamwork that's going across with the universities, with the institutions, is really powerful, and will help a lot as well.
So, I almost decided not to put this question in here, but I
That's so
decided.
much fun you had to do it anyway.
So much fun, I had to do it anyway.
Ask it.
Humboldt County previously was the economy was heavily dependent on the logging industry. Through the logging industry, Humboldt County experienced clear cutting, which was a detriment to a lot of the natural environment that we have here, our beautiful forests and all the life and species that exist in those forests. Because of that, Humboldt County, has prioritized environmentalism and has become reluctant to export its valuable natural resources to the rest of the world. Do you think the county's unwillingness to export these resources hinders economic growth?
I have lived up here my whole life, so I've had quite a bit of experience, and certainly went through all those iterations that you had talked about. And let me be clear up front. I am against, I don't think clear cutting was ever a good idea. Really harvesting old growth redwood that it takes 1,000 years to recreate our problems. But I think there's a genius in the end, and I think the use of to some level and with great stewardship can benefit the county as well. And so I think we need to step back and look at that on what's going to achieve all the environmental goals that we set for ourselves, as well as give economic opportunity for the people of the area. I think it actually can play a way in dealing with the kinds of forest fires that we're seeing, and being great stewards of our forest. It was interesting, and I remember we went through, I'll go late 70s, certainly 80s and 90s. Pacific Lumber that sit down there was one of the largest lumber mills, if not the largest, certainly in the U.S. and in the world. They had ownership that was the Murphy family, and they were frankly good stewards of their resources. Unfortunately, a group came in, if you will, raided it because they become a public company and started a lot of those clear cutting and had profit objectives instead of having, what's right for the environment, local, and all the balance I've seen. And, those are the things that can really cause the problems that we've seen environmentally. We saw the challenge that has. So I guess my answer is we need leaders and people, and making sure we have the stakeholders and decision makers of these resources thinking through holistically, how do I find the genius in the end? How can I do the right environmental stuff? We can take care of the land in a proper way.
So you understand this story very well, and you kind of mentioned some things that are new to me. You talked about how there was a family, Murphys,
Yes,
that owned
I-
it previously, and they were good stewards, and then somebody else came in and made it public, and you feel like that.
And let me be clear and explain that. So
I don't want to ruin your words here, so I'm sorry.
it's actually fine. And so I'm sorry to give you a history lesson. I have been
I'm
up
here for it.
again
Yeah.
all of my life. But the Murphy, there was a family for a long term, owned a lot of the redwood forest up here, and they owned the Pacific Lumber Company. They took it public, took the company public for good financial reason in the 70s. Operated with good stewardship. You know, there might be some arguments on either side, but for the most part, and I'll get my times wrong, but I'm gonna say either in the late 80s or early 90s. Someone that a lot of people know in the area, Horwitz, came as a bit of a corporate raider, took over, and what happened was the company was really undervalued from a stock price given the assets. So you have someone that come in with not good intentions, took a hostile takeover of the company, took control of those assets, and then monetized the hell out of it, if you will, and started clear cutting and started really creating enormous profits for its shareholders.
I want to be clear about one thing as I listen to Dan's rendition of this story too. It doesn't mean that every public company is bad, right? In this instance, the set of circumstances that led up to the decisions, particularly with hindsight, can be shown to be poor decisions, right? But maybe the things were different back then. I get to the same conclusions that you did by just the general notion that too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? Almost in everything in life. And there have been countless industries that have gone through similar things, perhaps with less environmental impact, but same kinds of outcomes, where they prosecute a resource and run it into the ground in the process of doing that. And you look at what those entities are worth today, not much, because there aren't reasonable stands of timber to harvest in a responsible way.
So they kind of just like drove themselves into the ground.
That's right.
Yeah.
For the benefit of a few.
Yeah. And, this is the whole track down around corporate ethics and good stewardship.
Which we've been schooled in endlessly.
Yes.
I want to get into some closing questions and like some advice. Do you guys have any closing thoughts or advice to give to the younger generation wanting to become an entrepreneur and succeed in business within the next 5-10 years?
My only thing I would say is I wish something like this existed when I was younger, and coming out of college or in a community like this. Even if you don't have aspirations to join a company or to lead a company, most people are going to be employed by somebody else at some point in time. And you could make use of the Startup Humboldt competition by participating in the competition, even if you're not thinking about leading a venture. There will be opportunities to form teams, provide expertise in ways that they're needed on different teams. And we would encourage you to participate and open yourself up to the ecosystem. The one other thing I'd say is people use that term Shark Tank, right? And I hate that term.
Really?
I just despise it because we really are not Shark Tank, and the whole experience is not meant to be that way either. We're not going to kick you to the curb. We're not going to make it an uncomfortable experience. We're not going to tell you that your idea is terrible.
Yeah.
We will be honest with you, and we'll tell you if we don't support the idea and why. But we want it to be a good experience for everybody and want people to walk away from the experience, the competition experience, in a positive way.
Yeah.
My advice is, first and foremost, be curious. and certainly curious in your discipline and ask lots of questions, but all the other aspects of it. Learn from others, developing relationships wherever you can, and be curious across the board. And, one of the things about entrepreneurship, and, sometimes there seems to be, people think of it as the business versus, people that might be in the sciences or other areas. And the great ideas often will come from, the engineering or scientists, or sometimes even music or what have you. And particularly, and I think about here in the Humboldt and how we're going to solve some of our toughest problems. People might be doing research and have great ideas, but they feel like commercialization is a bad thing. Often the best way to solve some of our biggest problems is through commercial ventures. It's how you get funding. It's having a strategy. You can be a great steward and solve great problems through commercial ventures. And so, understand, be curious, learn all you can.
I love it. I'm definitely going to use that. You two have been very revolutionary for my career and my experience, and it's really an honor to be, in the same room as you two and all the other so-called bigwigs of Humboldt County that I get to learn from. And so I learned a lot here. I hope that the audience learned a thing or two by listening to this podcast. And if you want to learn more, come on down to Startup Humboldt. You can talk to an advisor. You can talk to some of the LCV guys if they're in town. And we really want to help you and help the community. That's one of our core values and core goals here at the Startup Humboldt building. So
I just want to say that we really appreciate the two of you and the time you took to prepare for this.
Yeah.
And great experience for us, and happy to have those conversations with others too.
Yeah, one of my biggest goals with starting the podcast was bringing people on who have had the experiences like you guys have had, and being able to pass that down to the next generation, and kind of help them learn and navigate, especially if someone's watching this from Humboldt County, how you guys kind of played the game, so to speak, or whatever, and just like, sharing your story, because when we were trying to do some research on you guys to prepare for this, you guys don't have any media appearances, so the opportunity that you guys were available to come on to the show and make a media appearance, like, it's pretty cool. Like, we're the first to do it, so like I'm just thankful for you guys allowing us to what was I gonna say? Sorry.
allowing us to pick your brains a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, I've just been very nervous all day. This is so far the biggest podcast we've done, so I'm just really thankful that you guys were able to give us your time and help
Certainly
out.
the longest one you've done.
Yeah, I think we've gotten an hour and a half before, so we got about 10 minutes. So
I checked the timer. I was like, whoa.
yeah,
Yeah, but good fun and good engaging conversation.
yeah. Thank you.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. I guess
I'm all wrapped up.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening and watching.
Yeah, we have cameras over here.
Yeah, subscribe, like, comment, and please support our podcast. We are here for the community. We are here for Humboldt County, behind the Redwood curtain, with me, Luke, and my co-host Andrew. Thank you
Thank
for
you
having
guys
us.
so much. Yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode.